Israel's military is planning to capture 75% of Gaza, to control Gaza, basically 75% of Gaza within 2 months. So Israel is planning a big major ground offensive where it will take about 2 months for them to capture these 75%, and they're going to divide Gaza into zones where civilians can be placed. So it'll be one zone in southern Gaza, one zone in central Gaza, and one in northern Gaza.
Israel has escalated its offensive against Hamas in Gaza over the weekend with a series of attacks. One is reportedly locally to have hit a school sheltering displaced families. Well, the Middle East correspondent Jotam Confino is on the line. Jotam, good morning.
Good morning, Rosie.
What do we know about this?
So we know that Israel is striking a lot of these former schools because they say that Hamas is hiding there, which there is a lot of indication that is truth. 20 people were killed, including women and children. So day in and day out, we just hear these miserable stories about Israel targeting places where Hamas is allegedly hiding. A lot of civilians are being killed during those strikes.
And the condemnation, I'm sure, will continue, particularly in that action. Has there already been some reaction?
Not yet, but they do come in on a daily basis. If we're talking about Israel's allies, I think it's a bit too early for them to have seen it and condemned it, but I'm sure it's going to come this morning. I think what's going to be more interesting for them to wake up to is the detailed plans by the IDF that was revealed yesterday that says that Israel's military is planning to capture 75% of Gaza, to control Gaza, basically 75% of Gaza within 2 months. So Israel is planning a big major ground offensive where it will take about 2 months for them to capture these 75%, and they're going to divide Gaza into zones where civilians can be placed. So it'll be one zone in southern Gaza, one zone in central Gaza, and one in northern Gaza. So quite similar, actually, to what the Sunday Times revealed not too long ago, a map of Gaza, which is basically going to be divided into zones. And the military also said that they're going to shift focus from strictly going after Hamas members, or at least trying to kill as many as possible, to now controlling territory instead. They also revealed that they've killed around 800 members of Hamas since they began their offensive back in early March, including 50 senior Hamas officials, and that around 25% of all of the tunnels in Gaza have been destroyed, which is not a lot, really, when you think about it. So I think this signal and this plan, that's what's gonna anger a lot of Israel's allies, because it's a clear indication that the war will at least continue for another 2 months.
Yeah, this 2-month strategy. When there is condemnation, and there was in the strongest terms yet from Canada, France, Britain at the start of last week, what impact, if any, does it have on Netanyahu's plans?
Look, I think in terms of aid, it's definitely making sure that Netanyahu is allowing in aid on a daily basis, which has also happened. On average, we've seen about 100 trucks with humanitarian aid coming into Gaza every day. Now, it takes time for them, for the United Nations and for the NGOs in there to get the aid and to distribute it, and some of it is being looted. So it's not an ideal scenario at all, but at least aid is actually coming in now. So I think whenever the UK, France, and Canada, they speak in such strong terms, it has somewhat of an impact on humanitarian aid, but not on the overall picture, because Israel is not about to stop the war just because some of its allies say that they should. They're going to continue until the end, or until Hamas capitulates and agrees to a ceasefire.
Yeah, until the end. I mean, what is the end?
So it's a very obscure, vague goal that Israel has set up, which sounds pretty straightforward, which is to destroy Hamas. But it is vague, because destroy Hamas and then what? You can't just destroy Hamas and then who's gonna run Gaza? And Israel doesn't have an answer for that. So it's not really clear what the plan is here, which is something that Netanyahu has been criticized for since day one to not put in place an actual viable plan for the day after the war. You can continue to fight Hamas as long as you want, because there'll always be guerrilla warfare. There'll always be new Hamas members popping up here and there and attacking Israel. But it looks like Israel slowly but surely is making sure that Hamas's military infrastructure is more or less destroyed.
And in the meantime, it's interesting you talk about how the aid situation's changed in the last week with that sort of 100 trucks or so. Aid organisations, though, are saying that is, completely not sufficient for what the population actually need.
That's true. The whole world is saying just flood Gaza with aid, which you could technically do. The thing is that it would be mayhem in there, and you're already seeing scenes of looting and chaos, and Hamas is for sure going to also take some of this aid. So it has to be done in a responsible way. And the United Nations definitely doesn't have a way to secure that aid doesn't fall into the hands of Hamas. They've failed that task miserably in the past 19 months. And that's why Israel is saying we're taking this into our own hands along with the United States. Actually, today, this new plan with 4 distribution sites in southern Gaza and 1 in central Gaza is set to be put in motion with an NGO, an American-backed NGO, distributing the aid along with, Israel will be in charge of some of the security. Private American contractors will be in charge of security, but this NGO will be in charge of distributing aid in these Hamas-free zones, as they call it.
And the idea then being that aid won't fall into the hands of Hamas. I mean, presumably that's almost impossible to guarantee.
Yeah, I agree. Even it's quite interesting, really, because even the spokesperson of the Prime Minister's office admitted that it is not possible to 100% say that it's not going to fall into the hands of Hamas. But of course, you can make a bigger effort. There's no doubt at this point that Hamas has looted some of this aid and even sold it on the black market, which is atrocious. So you can make a bigger effort. It's just, I think it's delusional to think that you can have Hamas existing in Gaza and not getting their hands on any of this aid.
Yeah, and well, that's what all governments are weighing up. But actually, the strongest condemnation has been of Benjamin Netanyahu's recent actions. We've also heard that the head of a US-backed aid group has resigned. I mean, you're seeing NGOs. Well, tell us what's happened.
Yeah, it's quite a big blow. This morning we heard that he announced his resignation. He said he could not, with a good heart, stay with the organization and start distributing aid when it doesn't live up to the standards of international law. And that's, of course, a big blow to the group when your CEO resigns even before the plan is put into motion. And the United Nations and many other NGOs have been livid that they're not part of this whole mechanism. So it's not really off to a very good start. It also has been criticized for being a bit unrealistic because each distribution site will apparently be in charge of giving aid to 300,000 Palestinians. Now, that's a lot of people to give aid to in one distribution site. So we all have to see how this is going to play out. Today, apparently, it's going to start being put into motion, and we'll only be able to tell how it's going to go from there.
Jotam, thank you so much for the update. Jotam Confino, the Middle East correspondent.